Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the 22nd of July 2024. We will commence this evening's meeting with the Acknowledgement of Country read by Councillor Biggar.
I acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the traditional owners and original custodians of this land, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and the elders from other communities who may be here today.
Thank you. Welcome to tonight's council meeting. Before we commence, I request that all mobile phones are turned off or switched to silent. Thank you. The council meeting is being live streamed on the council YouTube page, so you can watch tonight's proceedings of the meeting, council deliberations and voting. This meeting will also be recorded and made available on council's website as soon as practicable after the meeting. My name is Councillor Lisa Hollingsworth and I'm the Mayor of the City of Boroondara. I will start by introducing my councillor colleagues. Seated to the left of the horseshoe table in this chamber is our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Felicity Sinfield. Good evening. Councillor Nick Stavrou, Councillor Wes Galt and Councillor Di Gillies. On the opposite side of the horseshoe table is Councillor Cynthia Watson, Councillor Jane Addis, Councillor Susan Biggar and Councillor Victor Franco. I also acknowledge in attendance this evening our Chief Executive Officer to my right, Mr Philip Storer, and Manager of Governance and Legal to my left, Mr Brian Wee. There are other officers in attendance tonight and they will be introduced as required. Mr Wee, are there any apologies for this evening?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillors Thompson and Park are apologies this evening.
Thank you. We will move to item 1, adoption and confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting held on the 24th of June 2024. Councillors, I have a motion to move or adopt the minutes. Is there anyone that would like to speak to that? Councillor Biggar.
Yes, I just have a slight amendment to the minutes. Oh, and there it is on the screen.
On the screen, thank you.
That's very efficient. So it was just in response to a question by Ian Huntley. I believe there was a bit of a verbal response by the Mayor that wasn't captured, that's all. Otherwise, I'm happy to go ahead and accept them and move that.
All right, thank you, Councillor Biggar. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Watson.
Happy to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there anyone opposed? And I'll just give you a moment to read the inclusion highlighted in red. As Councillor Biggar says, it just reflects the verbal comments made, but also the officer's response in writing as well. All right, I will now put that motion. Those in favour? And I see no one opposed. I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Second item is declaration of conflict of interest of any councillor or council officer. Is there anyone that wishes to declare a conflict? I see no lights on. Thank you. Item 3, deputation and presentations, petitions and public submissions. Mr Wee, are there presentations, deputations or submissions?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there are 2 petitions this evening, both in relation to a parklet at Belmore Road.
Thank you. Councillors, I'm in search of a motion to accept the petitions. Is there someone prepared to move the motion? Councillor Sinfield.
Happy to move the officer's recommendation, thanks.
Thank you. And seconded, Councillor Stavrou.
Happy to second it, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone in opposition? I see no opposition. I will put that to the vote. Those in favour? I see no one opposed. I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 4, informal meetings of councillors. I see the officer recommendation on the screen behind me. Do I have a mover to support the motion? Councillor Watson.
As printed on the screen, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And seconder, Councillor Biggar.
Yeah, I'm happy to second, thanks.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone opposed? I see no opposition. I will put that motion. Those in favour? And I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 5, public question time. Council encouraged the submission of public questions prior to 12 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Questions submitted prior to 12 noon will be provided with a detailed verbal response as well as a written response in due course. Questions submitted after 12 p.m. will receive a verbal response if possible, but otherwise will be taken on notice and a more comprehensive written response provided at the appropriate time. Mr. Wee, do we have any public questions?
Through you, Madam Mayor, this evening we have 4 questions from 2 members of the community.
Thank you. The first question I see is from, and first of all, I just wanted to thank everyone for their questions and advise that they have been allowed in accordance with Chapter 2 of the Governance Rules. And the first question this evening is from Mr. Ian Hundley. The question is, subject matter, council power to direct tree plantings. The question, please advise whether there is a legal scope under the Local Government Act for Boroondara to widen the scope of the Tree Protection Local Law 2024 to enable directions to be issued for the planting of canopy trees on private properties where none currently exist, and in addition to replacement trees. I call upon the Director of Urban Living, Mr. Daniel Free, to provide a response. Mr. Scott Walker to provide a response.
Thanks, Mayor. Happy to respond. In regard to Tree Protection Local Law, there is no scope for the Boroondara Tree Protection Local Law to be amended to require the planting of canopy trees on sites where no trees exist. Replacement planting can only be required when an application is made to remove a protected tree and a permission is then granted to remove the tree, which would also then be subject to a condition requiring replacement planting. It is noted, however, that the draft Boroondara canopy tree strategy will include an objective to identify opportunities to encourage greater planting of trees on private land. Thank you, Mr. Walker. The second question also from Mr. Ian Hundley. Mr. Hundley, are you in the chamber this evening, in the gallery? Good evening, good to see you. Second question is, subject matter, commercial benefits of electronic scoreboards. Question, please advise what commercial benefits tenant sporting clubs and commercial entities derive through advertising and corporate promotions displayed on the increasing number of council-approved electronic scoreboards installed at council-owned and controlled sporting grounds, at Greyfarm Park and at other precincts within Boroondara. Again, I will call upon the Director of Urban Living, Mr. Scott Walker, to respond.
Mayor, I might pass that over to Acting Director Andrew McHugh, who will be responding to that question.
Thank you. Mr. Canute.
And through you, Madam Mayor, the primary purpose of electronic scoreboards is to allow players and spectators to see match scores and game details. Council is not privy to arrangements between club and sponsor. On game days only, clubs are permitted to advertise club sponsors on scoreboards.
Thank you. Our third question is from Carol Hunt. Carol, are you in the gallery this evening? Good evening, how are you? Subject matter is Myrtle Macleay Park. The question is, will Council please ensure that proposed master plan for Macleay and Myrtle Park does not annex any additional area of park for car parking? I will call upon the Director of Places and Spaces to respond to this question. Mr. Freer, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. The Myrtle Macleay Park Master Plan will guide any changes identified for improvement and allow us to take opportunities so our whole community can enjoy these popular open spaces. We're currently considering the diverse range of perspectives that we have heard through the initial consultation as we prepare a draft master plan. The draft master plan and report on consultation findings will be presented to Council in the new year prior to being released for community consultation. This consultation period will allow for all residents the opportunity to provide feedback on any initiatives included in the master plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freer. And our fourth and final question is also from Carol Hunt. Subject matter, Myrtle Macleay Park. Question: will council please assign the informal area of Macleay Park, which is adjacent to the Buckingham Avenue, as an area for passive recreation activities to be populated with trees and other vegetation? I again will refer this question to our Director of Places and Spaces, Mr. Daniel Freer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As previous response to the earlier question, the same response is provided, and we'll provide that in writing to Ms Hunt.
Thank you. So that concludes questions, and as stated, all submitters of questions will receive a written response in due course. Thank you. Next, we move to agenda item number 6, notice of motion. Mr. Wee, do we have any notices of motion?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there are no notices of motion this evening.
Right, thank you. We now move on to presentation of officer reports. Councillors, there is an opportunity this evening to move some items en bloc. I will ask Mr. Wee to put a motion on the screen that puts forward a suggestion. As we have a large agenda this evening, I seek councillor support of whether or not anyone would like to move a motion to put these items en bloc. Councillor Simfield.
I'm happy to move the suggested grouping there.
Thank you.
We were going to perhaps excise audit and risk papers 7.4 and 7.5 from that group, which would leave 7.1 and 7.6 to remain on block, assuming that that's consistent with the correspondence earlier.
Thank you. So Councillor Simfield, is that your motion to move 7.1 and 7.6 en bloc?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Biggar?
Yes, I'd like to second that, thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone opposed? I see no opposition. I will put that motion to the vote. Those in favour? I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, so we will move through the order of officer presentation, and we will go to 7.2, contract 2023/10Q Library Development Architectural Consultancy Services. And the officer presenting is Daniel Freer. Is that correct? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, councillors. I'd actually like to hand to Jared Filosa to present this report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel, and thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Kew Library is an important community facility for Melbourne's inner east community. The existing facility is in poor condition, nearing the end of its useful life and functionality, and it no longer meets the needs of the community. Consistent with the vision and design brief, the redeveloped Kew Library will involve demolishing the existing building and constructing a new fit-for-purpose facility that complies with current regulations and standards. The new library aims to enhance customer experiences with an improved layout and flow, create both active and quiet spaces, and offer integrated connection to Alexandra Gardens and Petrie Square. It will offer a variety of community activities, services and programs that evolve with community needs and use flexible shelving and furniture to support diverse uses of spaces and improving access and functionality. The proposed design will be guided by the vision and design brief, which was endorsed by Council on the 25th of March this year, as well as the Boroondara Library Services Plan, the Boroondara Community Plan and Council's sustainability commitment, and aims to achieve minimum 5-star Green Star or equivalent standard. Connecting Kew Library to the adjacent gardens will enhance community outcomes, integrate accessibility and inclusion principles, create an engaging environment with flexible spaces that support a hub of activity by utilising the library's unique location. The service requirements of this contract include all design and documentation required to successfully deliver the new library building, including engaging and coordinating all required sub-consultant disciplines. The consultant will work closely with Council's project team, the broader Councillor Steering Committee and other project stakeholders to prepare proposals, plans and reports. Additionally, the consultant will engage with user groups, lead project design and construction meetings, participate in project control group meetings and coordinate sub-consultants. It is intended that this design contract will be novated to a head contractor to oversee the final completion of construction documentation under a design and construct delivery model. In late 2023, a public expression of interest was issued for lead consultancy design services for this project. 33 submissions were received and evaluated. 5 suppliers were shortlisted and invited to tender in April this year. The tender evaluation panel has assessed all tenders received against both price and non-price related criteria and is satisfied that the recommended consultant, Studio Hollenstein, can perform the required services and demonstrate best value for money. Council has included funding in previous years' budgets to undertake initial investigations and develop feasibility options for this project. Funding has continued through the current financial year and has also been forecast up to and including the 2026-27 years to enable the delivery of the works. This report seeks to award contract number 2023-10 for lead consultant services for the renewal and upgrade of the Kew Library to Studio Hollenstein for a lump sum of $1,643,105.18, excluding GST. Upon award of the contract, design services are set to commence and then finish by early 2026. Subject to council contract award, construction is then planned to commence in early 2026 and continue through till mid-2027. The contract services will extend until the end of the defects liability period, which concludes 12 months post-completion of construction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Philosophy, a very comprehensive overview. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Gold.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a number of questions. This particular consultant who's recommended, will they have a presence in Melbourne?
Sorry, I shouldn't interrupt. I've just realised Councillor Stavru had his light on first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Look, I have a couple of questions and I'll foreshadow a motion. The first question, just to confirm, it looked like a lot of work has gone into it. In the expression of interest, how many eligible contractors or architects applied for at the early stage?
Thank you, and through the Chair, we received 33 expression of interest submissions late last year.
Thank you. And just for clarity, they were then funneled to 5?
Correct.
Thank you for that. And my other question is, with the proposed Studio Hollenstein, I did a bit of research. Can you confirm, I've noticed that they've done a lot of works on libraries from Broken Hill to Ballarat to even overseas in Bulgaria. Would I be right that they've done a lot of libraries in that, in terms of their portfolio?
Thank you, and through the Chair, yes, you are right. That was one of the compelling elements of their proposal was their extensive experience in delivering library services, modern library services. Certainly an expert in that area was the panel's conclusion.
So across Australia and across the globe, so to speak. Thank you for that. That's all, just for shadow motion as well.
Thank you. And Councillor Gold, sorry for my error in not seeing the first light go on.
That's all right.
Over to you, thank you.
Flexible. So I go back to my question, will they have a presence in Melbourne during the work on the project?
Thank you, and through the Chair, thanks for the question. Yes, Studio Hollenstein, whilst they are based in Sydney, have committed to providing as much presence as needed locally in Melbourne, attending meetings as needed, and certainly has convinced the panel that they've resourced their proposal to meet our needs.
So that'll be primarily a drop-in, drop-out presence in Melbourne? They won't have it. What I'm asking is, are they going to have a permanent presence here in any way, shape or form? And probably not.
So Studio Hohenstein will have someone on the project based in Melbourne to meet the needs of the project.
Right, okay. So you're happy with the experience, and Councillor Stavro has drawn out questions about where they've done work before, so you're reasonably confident they can handle authorities, Melbourne-based consultants, construction challenges that are all a little bit different from Sydney. Your questioning went through that with them, I presume.
Thank you, and through the Chair, Studio Hohenstein's response on their capability to meet the needs of this project was compelling.
Right. So response times, if there's an urgent query during construction, did they give you any indication how they'd handle that?
The specification that was put out to tender outlined Council's requirements for response times, and again, Studio Hohenstein's response on how they're going to service that was compelling.
So it's covered in the contract, okay. So I think you've indicated before the Commission proposed tonight goes right through to the end of defects liability period. I'd be interested to know, with the novated contract, what will their role be? So do you say the novations for a contractor to document or design and document?
Sorry, would you mind just repeating the back end of that?
The scope of the novation, you mentioned there was a proposed novated contract. So at some point in time, a contractor will take over responsibility. Was that for design and documentation, or just documentation?
Thank you, and through the Chair again, the delivery model for this project is intended to be a design and construct. So a novated design and construct, I should say. Our planning at this point in time is to progress quite an advanced stage of design before novating the design team over to a builder. Does that answer your question?
I'm really hunting for what responsibility the proposed, and isn't just this architect, but any arrangement with an interstate architect, for instance, would have, or any architect for that matter, during a novated process, what responsibility will that consultant have for assuring us, the council, the client, that the design is compliant with their intent and suitable for purpose?
So the intended point of novation of the design team would really, over to the builder, would really just be for final documentation only. There wouldn't be license to change the design that we would work through quite closely over the next period of time.
I think the nub of my question was, will that architect, and in fact the other consultants would be, we're not dealing with those tonight, we can deal with that later, but will the architect have a responsibility to review what the contractor produces and to comment on it on compliance?
Yes, they will.
And that's written into the contract?
Yes.
Okay. And who actually controls the integration of the other consultants during that phase? I suppose the contractor does that.
So this contract proposed to be novated across to the builder is with Studio Hohenstein. They will have, so Studio Hohenstein would maintain control of their sub-consultants once novated across to the builder.
All right. My other questions relate to the sub-consultants, but we're not dealing with those tonight, so I'll deal with that later, I presume. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Councillor Stavro.
Look, I just wanted to get a small clarification on the back of Councillor Gold's excellent questions. It would appear that multiple times in projects, not only like this, that architects from interstates and abroad are considered to do projects like this for the benefit not of us in council, we've read the papers, but for the community out there. How normal is this process? It would appear to me to be very normal, but just ask the officers to comment on that.
Thank you, and through the Chair, we have no concerns with Studio Hohenstein being based interstate, particularly our ability to meet digitally, meet online. Really, we see no risk in that to the success of this project and community getting a good result.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Stabriu, you foreshadowed a motion.
I have indeed.
There is no other lights on, no further questions, so
My light's on, and I'm happy to move
Thank
the
you.
officer's recommendation.
thank you. And councillors, I'm in seek of a seconder. Councillor Simfield.
Happy to second.
Thank you. Is there anyone in opposition?
Not in opposition, but I wanted to make a comment.
Yes, please.
I'm happy for Councillor Addis to make a comment, or?
And I'd like to make a comment as well.
Right, thank you. Well, look, Councillor Stabriu is the mover of the motion. There is no one in opposition, but obviously before we put the motion to the vote, Councillor Addis, would you like to make your comment now? Or Councillor Stabriu, would you like to speak to the motion first?
Let me speak to the motion and then...
You'd like to speak to the motion? Yeah.
But I'll be guided by yourself, Madam Mayor, as to what process the comment comes into and where
Look,
you would
I'm
like.
happy for you to speak to the
No problem
motion.
at all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Look, thank you for this, and tonight's paper is really about awarding the contract, and I'm absolutely delighted to see that happening. This is going to be an absolutely transforming initiative. As we've said before, this is going to be a community hub that will add to the city of Boroondara, obviously to the residents in Kew. It'll be a wonderful project, and to connect Alexandra Gardens, Petrie Square to a wonderful library, which will help the young and old and everybody in between to create a community hub, as we have debated earlier times. What I'm particularly delighted is the hard work that has gone through by the officers, having asked so many competent organisations to submit expressions of interest, and then have worked hard to funnel them to the last 5 and ultimately to Student Hollenstein, as I said earlier, and verified by the officers. I was delighted to see that such an organisation has got a lot of expertise in libraries, particularly in Victoria, New South Wales, but not only that, across the board, country, city, and globally, as they've done work in Europe as well, at least to my understanding. I think those bona fides, and I think that kind of global experience and what libraries are going to mean for the future are going to play a major role for us to get the library and the vision that has been articulated in previous reports and in the vision for the library. I thank the officers, and I commend the officers' recommendation to my fellow councillors this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stabriu. Councillor Addis.
I think it's no secret that I've never been in favour of demolishing this library, but I do respect that it is the will of council that that's what we've ended up with. But so I guess I accept that that this makes sense given the motion that I didn't agree with previously. So it's for that reason that I will support it, but with some reluctance.
Thank you. Councillor Franco.
Thank you. I'll be supporting the motion. My views are similar to my fellow councillor who's just spoken, Councillor Addis. I've previously expressed my reservations about the project, but I recognise that a majority decision of council supported it, and I've looked at the material and the tender that's been proposed, and I'm satisfied with the approach, and I think it's a good way. I think it's a good way forward, so I'll be voting on the basis of the report before us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Simfield, would you like to speak a seconder now or comment?
Thank you. Just briefly comment and just to thank Nick for moving, Councillor Stabriu for moving this motion, for the officers for the work that they've done behind the scenes in preparing this. I think we have an excellent selection here in front of us, and I look forward to seeing what they produce. I'd also just like to thank my colleagues for supporting this motion, respecting the will of the majority of council, because I think it's an important thing. It's a really, really important project for the Kew community and those in the north of our municipality. So I'll leave my comments there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gold.
Oh, mine's just in a way of comment. I'm going to support this motion tonight as well because I think the selection of the architect's been robust and again, I thank the officers for going through that process. My concern will be further down the track, making sure we get the quality of the building in a novated arrangement, particularly with an interstate architect. So that's probably for more discussion further down the track. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Stavru, I notice your light's on next, but Councillor Watson, I believe you want to have a comment, is that correct?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just briefly, my comments are in alignment with Councillor Addis and Councillor Franco. I respect the robust debate that we've had on the Kew Library. This has been an issue since I was elected to council in 2016, and this is the process that we have arrived at. It's not what I would have argued for over the years, but I respect the majority view of council and will be supporting this tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Stavru, as the mover, would you like to?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I won't say too much. It's thank my fellow colleagues here. I mean, obviously, difference of opinion is critically important, and certainly the difference of opinion has been evident in this, and I think we're better for it, and I thank my colleagues for their opinions and also for supporting the motion this evening.
Thank you. Now, I note there was no opposition, so I will now put the motion. Those in favour? And I see there are no hands against, so I declare this carried unanimously. Thank you. And thank you, officers, for your presentation. Now, the next item is 7.3, Contract 2023-123, Michael Tuckstand Redevelopment, Architectural and Lead Consultancy Services. This item will be introduced by Jay Seard, I believe, Senior Project Architect. Good evening, Jay. How are you? And over to you.
Thank you, and to you, Madam Chair. The Michael Tuckstand, constructed on council land in 1938 at Glenferrie Oval, holds significant historical value not only for community sports but also for Victoria's sporting history through its association with Australian Rules Football and the Houghton Football Club. Over the years, this heritage-listed asset has become underutilised and has shown signs of wear and tear and requires substantial renovations. Currently, the Michael Tuckstand is closed to the public, and council is undertaking an early works package which is focused on addressing and rectifying critical structural issues. Council has allocated $29.96 million in its long-term financial strategy, specifically for revitalisation of the Michael Tuckstand and Glenferrie Oval, staged across multiple financial years up to 2027-28. In December 2023, Council endorsed a vision and design brief for revitalising the Glenferrie Oval precinct. This comprehensive document was developed following extensive research and community consultation, focusing on enhancing its functionality, safety and cultural significance. Council intends to appoint a lead consultant on the lump sum contract to undertake the required design services for the development of the Michael Tuckstand, in accordance with the vision and design brief. In October 2023, Council publicly invited expression of interest from design consultants for this project. 20 submissions were received and 3 suppliers were shortlisted. Council subsequently invited tenders from the shortlisted consultants to provide architectural and lead consultancy services. An invitation to tender was issued via Council's electronic tendering system on 22nd of April 2024, closing on 31st of May 2024. Following evaluation of submissions against quantitative and qualitative criteria, the panel is satisfied that recommended consultant, Architects Australia Pty Ltd, can perform required services and demonstrate the best value for money. This report recommends awarding contract 2023-123 for the Michael Tuckstand Architectural and Consultancy Services to Architects Australia Pty Ltd for the lump sum of $1,342,289.15, excluding GST. The project budget allocation fully supports the awarding of the architectural and consultancy contract. The officer makes a recommendation for Council to award the contract as per the Council's report. The detailed recommendations are displayed on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Said. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Franco.
Thank you, Mayor. On page, bear with me, on the last page of the report, it references that a probity advisor and Dalton Associates was appointed to oversee the two-stage expression of interest and the request for tender process. When were they appointed? And in respect of the expression of interest, what is their role? I appreciate this might not be a question to the officers currently up on the podium or the lectern, but I'd like to understand what role they're going to have in respect of the two-stage expression of interest process and whether they've already given that advice or if that's to come later. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the probity advisor on this project was appointed prior to the expression of interest phase, so they were present through the procurement process for both stages.
And when we refer to the expression of interest, we're referring to the expression of interest for the process directly here, not the expression of interest separate for community uses of the facility. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Through Madam Mayor, just to clarify, the expression of interest process referred to is for the appointment of the architect, so as the commercial arrangement for this contract.
Perfect. Okay, that clarifies it. I was wondering whether there was a bit of overlap in terms of the processes. That's all. Thank you. I'm fine with the rest of the content.
Thank you, Councillor Franco. Councillor Gold.
Some of these questions are going to be similar, but I need to ask them anyway, I think. I noticed quite a bit of the experience mentioned in an architect's proposal were for interstate projects. Are we confident that they've got a presence in Melbourne and the team in Melbourne have got the appropriate experience for this project?
Thank you, True Madam Chair. Yes, they have a local office, and the team, as part of the request for tender, we asked the consultant to provide resources for the project, and it was confirmed that the entire team to service this project will be based in Melbourne office throughout the project.
Mm-hmm. Can I just ask you to clarify the procurement method again? Did you say the two stages related to the procurement of the building? Have we predetermined the procurement method we're proposing, or that's still floating?
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I can clarify that, the two-stage process referred to here is purely for the appointment of the architect for this project. A construction contract would be subject to a separate process, and that will come to council in due course.
Right, but this architect will be overseeing it the whole way through as per the arrangement. Okay. Again, can I ask for clarification that does the contract with the architect, or will the contract with the architect when it's signed, be very clear on the responsibility of that architect for checking the work and coordinating the activities of all other consultants which aren't appointed at this point in time?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, they will oversee that entire process, and they will be responsible after no waited to also oversee through the contractor.
Just can I get you to clarify overseas? Are they required to integrally go through the documentation of other, they don't have to understand it because it's different disciplines, but are they charged with the responsibility of making sure what's being delivered by the engineering consultants and specialist consultants match what the design is? And it's a tricky task, but it's often essential. I'm thinking of I won't go there, of other building failures that's often brought about by that these days.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Yes, that's the intent. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gold. Councillor Stavrou.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I just had the same questions that I had of the other project in the previous paper, but I think you mentioned 20 were the initial expression of interest answers, but in terms of experience, are the chosen or the recommended architects, have they got experience in heritage-style buildings within, I usually like sort of instances where, have they done similar kind of work within Australia, overseas, so that we can understand a little bit and about their specific expertise?
Yeah, and thank you through you, Madam Chair. Yes, they've actually demonstrated great experience with heritage building and heritage project. So State Library, for example, was one of the project, and similarly, like a lot of sports complex and stands. So the consultant has great experience with similar type projects.
Fantastic, thank you. And thank you for your good diligence in choosing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stavrou. Councillor Gold.
Simply when the time's right, Mayor, I'd like the opportunity to move a motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other lights on, so I believe that time is now, Councillor Gold.
The officer's recommendations. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillors, I am in search of a seconder. Councillor Watson?
Happy to second.
Thank you. Now, to assist the mover, is there anyone opposed to the motion? I see no opposition. Councillor Gold, as the mover, would you like to speak to your motion?
Just briefly, thank you, Mayor. Reading through the documentation that's been provided for us, it's very clear that there's been a thorough process gone through, and I thank the officers for doing that and all involved. It's a tricky project, it's an unusual project, and I'm not surprised that the number of applicants filtered away quite quickly, and we were down to 2 that you felt comfortable with at the end of the day. But, you know, reading through it and the answers you've given me tonight gives us confidence, I think, that they'll do a very interesting job. It's not well defined at this point in time, but I think the sort of group you've selected will be good at putting that together and drawing us together to a very interesting project. So I encourage my colleagues to support the appointment of this architect tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Watson, as the seconder, I see you have your light on. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. My comments follow on from Councillor Gold. Look, I just wanted to say that this has never been a project that I felt particularly comfortable with. I always felt that this was a square peg in a round hole, and I was not convinced of its worth and the eye-watering sums that we were talking about to make it fit for purpose again made me not very keen on this particular project. But I have to say that I've turned around 180 degrees because I've seen some of the work that's gone on down there. I can see the space opening up, and now I'm actually really excited for this project. This is going to be an amazing community space, and in my humble opinion, worth every dollar we're about to spend.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. I will now put the motion. Those in favour? I see no opposition. I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, officers. Item 7.4, recommendations of Audit and Risk Committee meeting on the 13th of March 2024. This item will be introduced by the gentleman on my left, the Manager of Governance and Legal, Mr. Brian Wee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. This report presents the findings of the Audit Risk Committee that was held on the 13th of March. It presents the reports that were presented to the committee along with their recommendation in the attachment. I'm happy to take any questions about this report.
Thank you. Councillor Stavrou.
No questions, Madam Mayor, but I would foreshadow a motion.
Thank you. Now, I see no other lights on, so I believe that time is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I would not say much to this. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation. It speaks for itself.
All right. Thank you, Councillor Stavrou. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Watson.
Happy to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Now, to assist the mover, is there anyone opposed? I see no opposition. Councillor Stavrou, I believe you had nothing further to say, is that correct?
There's nothing further to say, Madam Mayor. The motion speaks for itself.
Yeah, thank you. I will now put that motion. Those in favour? I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item is 7.5, biannual report from the Audit and Risk Committee. Again, this will be introduced by Brian Wee, Manager of Governance and Legal.
Through you, Madam Mayor, this report presents the biannual report from the Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee to Council. It covers 2 meetings that the Audit and Risk Committee conducted in March 2024 and in June 2024. I note that as I review the report by the chair in relation to the 13 March 2024 meeting omits one late report that was submitted to the Audit and Risk Committee meeting. On that basis, I propose that officers contact the chair of the Audit and Risk Committee to discuss submitting a further report to council at the next council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Wee. Councillor Stavro, I see your light on.
I don't have a question, Madam Mayor, but I foreshadow another motion.
Right, thank you. I see no other lights on, so Councillor Stavro.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I won't speak too much. I'm sorry about that. Wrong process. Move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr.
Can I
Wee?
ask a question? I'm sorry. Given what Mr. Wee said, is that appropriate or the recommendation, or do we need to add something? If it's going to be adjusted,
Council, I'm in your hands in the sense that there's two options. Council could accept this report as submitted by the chair to the CEO to council, and I can present, officers can seek confirmation from the chair and present a subsequent report, or this matter could return to the next council meeting with potentially an updated report from the chair of the Audit and Risk Committee. In my opening, before I suggested the second option as perhaps the more appropriate option.
Councillor
Can you clarify what the second option is, Mr.
That this report just be withdrawn this evening, and a report be brought to the next council meeting in August. As I said, it reflects, unfortunately, that last-minute report submitted by VAGO was included in the Audit and Risk Committee agenda for that meeting, but it wasn't reflected, unfortunately, in the chair's report, in the chair's biannual report. It's an omission that can be corrected with discussion with the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wee.
Thank you. So, Councillor Addis, first of all, your question's been satisfied?
yeah, look, I think I'm happy either way, but I think that makes sense. So we need some different words? Or?
I suspect if council is satisfied that this report be withdrawn, then it can be brought back at the next council meeting.
There are no implications, I presume.
Beg your pardon?
There are no implications by withdrawing the report from this committee?
No, there aren't.
Might as well.
Can I just ask a
Yes, Councillor
governance question?
Yes.
Wonder whether to adjourn this matter off to a future meeting of council might be neater rather than withdrawing the report, seeing as it's already been on the publicly circulated agenda. So a motion would simply read to be adjourned to a future meeting of the council.
Thank you.
I think that's the best way to proceed, Madam Mayor.
Can I ask a question in relation to that, Madam Mayor? Just, does that preclude an updated report or advice being included? No.
No, pardon me, it does not.
Thank you. So, Councillor Sinfield, is this a motion that you are putting forward or under Councillor Stavrou's motion to amend?
Either or. I note that the motion does not have a seconder at this point, so it could lapse for want of a seconder, or Councillor Stavrou could adopt the suggestion.
I mean, I'm happy to adopt the suggestion.
Thank you, Councillor Stavrou. I am in search of a seconder.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Sinfield. Is anyone opposed to this motion? Sorry, Councillor Radish, your light's still on, did you? All right, I see no opposition. I will put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. We will now move to item 7.7, the May 2024 monthly financial report. This item will be introduced by Sapphire Allen, Acting Chief Financial Officer. Good evening, Sapphire.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to present the May 2024 monthly financial report. Council's favourable operating result against a year-to-date budget of $48.17 million is $18.23 million, or 61% above the 23-24 amended budget of $29.94 million. This is due to a number of factors which are detailed in the report before you and are primarily identified as timing differences. At the end of May, Council's cash position stood at $182.62 million, or $61.66 million above the year-to-date budget. Council's balance sheet and cash position are sound, and overall financial position at 31 May is satisfactory. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms Allen. Councillor Simfield, you have a question?
No question, Madam Mayor, but happy to move the officer's recommendation when the time is right.
Thank you. Councillor Bigger?
Yeah, I did have just a couple of questions. And this is a clarification, I suppose, on page 14 of the report under Capital Works. The Fritz Holzer Stadium and Sports Ground, it says this is a multi-year project, 1.9 million. I was under the impression that that had been completed. Is that incorrect? This is a multi-year project? Because certainly the building is now standing.
No, and thank you, Councillor. So this, for the Fritz Holzer, this is actually a contribution towards the Victorian School Building Authority for the Fritz Holzer Reserve. And so, as I understand, so there's been some delays in actually completing the project, and we have not given our contribution. So ours is just the contribution part of that, which we haven't paid.
Thank you. And Councillor Bigger, yes, Daniel Freer has a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. This contribution is in relation to the sports ground, which is at the rear of the recently constructed and I think now opened basketball stadium fronting Camberwell Road. The works for the sports ground are continuing at the moment, and part of Council's contribution to that was to increase the sports ground to a higher standard to enable a better community outcome in the longer term. That has not been completed at this point in time, and hence the money has not been provided to the state government.
If I might, just to clarify, so does that mean when it says a multi-year project, do you mean just over these 2 years, or is it likely to continue further than that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we're unclear how long it will take the state to complete their project, but it is likely to certainly go into the next financial year as the site is complex.
Great, thank you. And I just have another one, if I might. Thank you. And thank you for this report. I guess it's to, under priority projects, I just, given that the numbers are so significant in terms of the variance, and particularly the first item, I just wonder if you could speak to it, even though I know this isn't the first time we've seen it, but 6.46 million obviously is a significant figure as a variance.
Thank you, Councillor. So yes, there is a variance there of 6.46 million on this project, which is just due to the commencement, the later than expected commencement of our core project. In the full year forecast, which we did in March, we have identified for this particular project, there's 4.28 million already forecast due to the delays that will move till next year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Councillor Addis.
Thank you. In reports like this, sometimes in response we get queries from the community suggesting that we've got a large surplus and could be spending it elsewhere, and I just was seeking clarification that this does not mean we're operating with a large surplus.
Mr. Storer, thank you.
I might just make 2 points. One goes to the question just raised by Councillor Biggar in relation to the $4.28 million, which relates to work being undertaken as part of our core systems upgrade. We will be providing a further report to the Transformation Steering Committee about this particular topic, but the primary issue there has been a contractor who was not performing. And I can advise councillors we have now managed to negotiate the departure of that contractor. So we will be having a conversation with the committee about what looking ahead is going to present to us. So that's what that's actually really about. We've had to arrange for that contractor to move on, basically.
Councillor Biggar.
Sorry, I'm sorry that your explanation just raised another question for me, but by that, because obviously that could be taken to mean that it's presumably not about paying a contractor $6 million or $4 million. It's about a contractor who was basically not doing the work in the time that we had wanted them to do it. Is that correct?
Correct. So the money is not spent.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
That's essentially it. And to then deal with Councillor Addis's question, people often don't understand the difference between profit and surplus. We don't make a profit. And in our case, what a surplus does is to include a range of carryover funds allocated to various projects, particularly capital projects. It also includes a range of non-cash items, which are accounting entries needing to be taken into consideration. They're often the key elements, if you like, the larger chunks, not all of it, but the larger chunks you can find in a surplus.
Right. Thank you. So, Councillor Sinfield, Councillor Stavrou, your light's on.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question perhaps to Mr. Storer. Given the recent news that we've had on CrowdStrike and also the increasing in cybersecurity, are we providing more funds to ensure that we're able to withstand or have ways to protect the organisation going forward? Is this something we'd be able to comment, Mr. Storer?
I guess the observation I would make is that in our case we were up and running very quickly. I had observed that our internet was not working, spoke with our head of IT security, and I would say within around about half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, we were back up and running. So that's the first observation I'd make, which is clearly not the case for many others. There are still companies who are reeling with this particular challenge. Does it require anything further from us? At this stage, we don't believe it does. However, we continue to review our settings, and we'll do so once more is known about exactly what's happened here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stavrou. Councillor Sinfield, you foreshadowed a motion.
Thank you, the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, councillors. I'm in search of a seconder. Councillor Biggar?
Yes, I'm happy to second that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, to assist the mover, is there anyone opposed? I see no opposition. Councillor Sinfield, would you like to speak to your motion?
I think the motion speaks for itself. I'll thank the officers for the preparation of this comprehensive report and commend it to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now put the motion. Those in favour? I see no opposition. I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Yeah, we will move on to item 7.8, and thank you, Sapphire, for your presentation. 7.8 is the, and you're not moving, are you? 7.8 is the loan guarantor request for Canterbury Tennis Club. This item will be introduced by Sapphire Allen and supported by Sam Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So this report is to consider a proposal for the City of Boroondara to act as a loan guarantor for Canterbury Tennis Club, which is seeking a bank loan of $150,000 from Bendigo Bank. Canterbury Tennis Club has already completed the replacement of courts 3 and 4, including surrounding fencing at a cost of $175,000. Canterbury Tennis Club requires a loan to redevelop courts 1 and 2, which are over 15 years old. Under their current lease agreement with Council, Canterbury Tennis Club is responsible for maintaining and replacing the playing surfaces and infrastructure. As the club does not own the tennis courts, this affects the security required for the loan. Council has undertaken a financial assessment for Canterbury Tennis Club, which was conducted by an external party corporate scorecard. This resulted in a score of 5.80 out of 10, indicating it has a sound financial position. The score is on a probability of default scale from 0 being a high risk of default to 10 being very low risk of default. Council's loan guarantee will enable the club to secure the necessary funds, ensuring continued operations and facility improvements. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Sinfield.
Sorry, that was a legacy loan.
No problems. Councillor Stavrou.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is something that we normally do, just to understand it a little bit, and perhaps for the community to understand. I understand the low probability of default. In the event of default, what do we do? What is our recourse?
Thank you for your question, Councillor. So if the club was to default on its loan, Council would then become liable for the loan from the bank. So in previous occasions when we have gone loan guarantor for other clubs, we haven't had anyone default in that time. And Canterbury Tennis Club have been one of those as well. So,
thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Gillies.
Thank you, Chair. I think my question's actually been asked. I was just wanting to clarify if Council has played this role before, and if so, had we with this club? And thirdly, if we have we followed the same process in assessing the requirements? But I think those three have probably been answered.
Yes to all of the above.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Biggar.
Yes, somewhat similar, but I guess this is just coming from a point of not having a lot of experience with a default score. And to me, 5.8 didn't feel as high as I would have thought you might be about to tell us. So I'm just interested to know whether that's quite typical and would be considered low risk, basically.
Thank you for your question, Councillor. So it is out of 10, and so we do get an external party to look at that. So they look at all of their financials from, what are their current assets or liabilities, also debts they have at the moment. So in this particular case with Canterbury Tennis Club, they actually do have significant amount of cash, but they're choosing to obviously do a loan. So out of that, we do get the score that it is of low risk default. Of course, you never know what will happen. So hopefully that answers your question.
Sorry, maybe I didn't. It does sort of, I guess I was just asking, to me the figure 5.8 didn't seem to speak about being, given that 10 is very strong, I guess it was a longer way from 10 than I expected to hear. And so I guess I was asking if you had any sense of how this compares to previous circumstances, that's all.
Yeah, thank you for your question. So to be within that probability of default, it actually doesn't just go straight down the middle like, 5 between the 10. The satisfactory or the low risk of default starts probably about 4.2. So it actually does go a little bit further. So it's not just that right in the middle there. So, but all of their ratios are assessed, so their capability of what they've currently got outstanding for loans, any current debts, whether they've actually defaulted on anything before. So all of that is assessed in the whole score. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Gold.
Thank you. Mine's just a continuation, I think, on Councillor Stavro's questions before. If in the event, a very unlikely event, that this club goes belly up or something and ceases to exist, it's our land, isn't it? And I suspect this is going to be applied, this money is to be applied to improvements of that land, and we would benefit from those improvements in any event. Is that right?
You are correct,
Thank
yes.
you.
Thank you. Councillor Addis.
Just a motion when the time's right.
Thank you. Councillor Watson.
Thank you. Councillor Stavrou, your light's on. Have you got a question or? Yeah.
I do, and I apologise, it's a second bite at the cherry. Just a quick question. It came up when you were talking about the financial statements. We will be receiving financial statements from the club on an ongoing basis, I'm assuming every year that the loan is outstanding?
Yes, that is correct. So as part of their requirement, we do have a list in there of what the club needs to provide us as well. So that'll be ongoing, so we can assess the, their financials as well.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. I feel like I should be up there answering questions because I knew the answer to all of them, having been on the committee and a club president who went through this exact process. Mine is just a curiosity question, I guess, from the point of view of I have been through this process, and what was never discussed or we never heard about was this corporate scorecard. That's an intriguing notion, and maybe the question's not for tonight, because a score of 5.8 seems to be quite extraordinary to me, because I know that club is bursting at the seams with members. It's in a very strong financial position, and the probability of them defaulting would be so close to zero, it's not funny. So how do you come up with 5.8? And if it's a long answer, I'll take it offline.
Thank you, Councillor. So this is done by an external party, so we actually don't come up with that calculation ourselves. So Corporate Scorecard is the company we've used to do the financial viability assessment on the club. So I'm taking it, and I'm happy to get more information for you and take that on notice, but it would be a number of things that are looked at to, their financials as well, just to assess them on their probability of default.
Okay, thank you. And I think Councillor Addis has a motion which I'm happy to second.
Right, thank you. Councillor Addis, there are no other lights on for questions, so Councillor Addis, back to you.
I think my colleague is being a little rash, but the officer's recommendation, please.
Right, thank you. And I am in search of a seconder.
Happy to second this one.
Thank you, Councillor
I'm very
Watson.
fond of this club. They're a very, very good club.
I understand. To assist the mover, is there anyone opposed? I see no opposition. Councillor Addis, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, look, I'm not an expert on tennis by any means, but I have been to the club and seen what a strong group they are, and I believe they have around 500 members, so there are a lot of people playing there very regularly on the 4 courts. So I think what we're doing is providing a great service to a great many of our local residents by guaranteeing this loan. And I understand from the report that they have spent considerable sums in the past upgrading the other 2 courts. So it seems like this is a progression of an ongoing commitment they have to the quality of, as some of my colleagues said, in some ways a council asset or thus a community asset. So thank you for the comprehensive report. I too was puzzled by a score of 5.8, but I accept that that's acceptable, and I'm very pleased to hear that this isn't opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Watson, I see your light on as a second. Did you want to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you. This is a fantastic club, and it's a much-needed upgrade. I've played on these courts many times, and the top 2 courts on Ondacar are as dodgy as. So this has been needed for a very long time. They're very well used. It's got a very, very strong membership base. We've invested in this club with the upgrade of the Canterbury Tennis Club. Lovely group of people, very, very well managed club. But I have to say, as a former committee member at Greythorn Park who went through this process with council, and we upgraded 6 courts from Ontikar to Sinclair. That figure that's doing 2 courts did 6 about 15 years ago. So I look at it and go, oh my.
Madam Mayor,
How the dial is moved.
It's not opposed.
I understand, thank you. Thank you. Chair's discretion. All right, I will now put the motion. Those in favour? I see no opposition. I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. The next item is 7.9, loan guarantee request for the Camberwell Central Bowls Club. This item will also be introduced by Sapphire Allen, Acting Chief Financial Officer. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So this report is to consider a proposal for the City of Burundara to act as a loan guarantor for the Camberwell Central Bowls Club, which is seeking a bank loan of $40,000 from Bendigo Bank. Camberwell Central Bowls Club has already invested significantly in redeveloping their natural grass greens, including the upper green in early 2024, with a total of expenditure of $60,000 spent so far. Camberwell Central Bowls Club requires a loan to complete the surrounding infrastructure, such as seating, retractable shades and drink taps, which are crucial for ensuring a safe and comfortable community facility. Under their lease agreement with Council, Camberwell Central Bowls Club is responsible for maintaining and replacing playing surfaces and associated infrastructure, including the fencing and lighting. As the club does not own the Bowls Club, this affects the security required for the loan. Council has undertaken a financial assessment as well for Camberwell Central Bowls Club, which again has been conducted by an external party corporate scorecard. And this has resulted in a score of 5.80 out of 10, indicating it has a sound financial position. The score on a probability of default scale from being 0, being high risk of default, to 10, being very low risk of default. Council's loan guarantee will enable the club to secure the necessary funds, ensuring continued operations and facility improvements. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Councillor Franco, your light's on first.
No question. I'd just like to foreshadow a motion.
Thank you, Councillor Franco. Councillor Stavro?
Madam Mayor, not really a question. I'm assuming all the responses will be similar to the previous paper. Thank you very much.
Yes, you are correct.
Thank you. Now, I see no further lights on. Councillor Franco, would you like to speak to your foreshadowed motion?
I'd like to create a motion first, which is I'd like to move the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. And I am in search of a seconder. Councillor Stavro?
Happy to second it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Franco to assist. Obviously, you as the mover of the motion, would you like to speak to your motion? Oh, sorry, any opposition to the motion? I see no lights on. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I'll speak briefly. Thank you. I'd like to thank the officers for putting this report together, and also the other one on the Canterbury Tennis Club. I think it's really pleasing, and I can see there's no opposition today, so I'll keep it short that we are undertaking such support for these clubs. It's very important. I'd also like to just point out the officers have already explained some of the projects the club has undertaken. This is a very prominent club in the centre of our municipality, right close to our corporate headquarters in the Civic Centre in which we're based. They've done some fabulous work. They're very well run, and I'm just very pleased that we've gotten to this point. I'd also like to single out the work of one member of the club, Conrad Romagny, the finance director, who's put so much time and effort to getting all the paperwork together and pushing this process along. And I can see that Conrad's here in the chamber with us today, along with the club president, Frank Marcazzani. So great work on everyone's behalf, and I encourage my colleagues to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Franco. Councillor Strapper, your light's on? No, thank you. And I will now put that motion. Those in favour? And I see there is no one against, so I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Now, that concludes the officer reports and presentations, and I just wanted to explain the two items we put on block at the start of this. We put on block because they were administrative and routine in nature, and documents had been thoroughly read by councillors and supported by officers. So we now move to general business.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I do have one item of general business to raise. Thank you for the reminder.
Please.
And that is a leave of absence request for Councillor Park, who was unable to join us this evening.
Thank you. And obviously, because Councillor Park is not here, he does not leave to leave the chamber. So, councillors, I seek a seconder for the motion. Councillor Franco, thank you. To assist the mover, is there anyone in opposition? I see no opposition. I will put that motion. Those in favour? And I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you. Now, any other items of general business? Councillor Hollingsworth. Look, if I may, with your indulgence, I just wanted to speak very briefly about the official opening of the community garden precinct at the Hawthorn Tuckstand Pavilion area, the Glenferrie Oval precinct, and just wanted to acknowledge what a wonderful turnout it was to celebrate the official opening. I was joined by Councillor Gold as the ward councillor, and Councillor Sinfield and Councillor Gillies, and our CEO, our director, multiple directors were there at the event, managers and people involved in delivery of the project, and just wanted to thank everyone involved. And if anyone has not been to see the amazing new precinct, I encourage you all to go and have a look, because it is a wonderful community asset. Thank you. Is there any other general business? I see no lights on. We will now move to urgent business. Is there any urgent business? I see no urgent business lights on. Confidential business? No confidential business. We will now proceed to close the meeting to the public. I thank everyone for their attendance this evening. I thank councillors for their contribution, councillor officers for their commitment to delivering reports, and thank those that are viewing this meeting for attending. Wish you all the best of good health and stay safe. And I confirm this meeting is closed at 7:52. Good evening and thank you.